guys look good. You too. Thank you. Isn't it strange how some communities are mostly defined by their accomplishments, while other communities are defined mostly by their shortcomings? I've witnessed the impact of a community perception or narrative and how it can propel some individuals or repress others. And when I look inwardly, I have to ask myself, am I driving the narrative or is the narrative driving me? As a nonprofit director and entrepreneur, I interact with hundreds of dream chasers, and it is my observation that as it pertains to Black Americans and the ideas that we take on, we have internalized and identified community narratives of deficiency and scarcity, narratives that were never meant for us to identify with. Chasing dreams and achieving goals that require consistent effort and intense focus often lead brilliant and capable individuals to be held back by imposter syndrome. This self-doubt frequently prevents them from realizing their aspirations, whether it's chasing higher education, changing careers, starting a nonprofit, launching a business, or even taking the necessary steps to scale a business. I'm of the mindset that when this happens, this imposter syndrome stems from the identification and internalization of limiting narratives. Now, side note, I'm going to get into some terms, and the terms that I use are not exclusive to the Black community, but I am going to speak to my group for the sake of focus and to not come across as speaking for other groups. All right, so some of the terms I'm going to mention are not new, but we've heard them for most of our lives, right? And I've been in the nonprofit space for quite some time now, and far too often I hear us using these terms for ourselves, and we say, underserved, underrepresented, minority, marginalized, disadvantaged, disenfranchised. To me, these terms have always come across like acceptable buzzwords to use when referring to communities of color without actually having to say the race or culture one is referring to. They're kind of like stand-in terms, right? In addition to that, these words seem to signify just comfortable terms to use to draw sympathy, but not a solution. And that's really like in the nonprofit space that we use it, right? And so I'm of the mindset that the connotation and frequency of these terms, underserved, underrepresented, minority, marginalized, disadvantaged, disenfranchised, if internalized, will stagnate anyone. Now, the good news is we can polarize this frequency of deficit and lack with the frequency of abundance and fulfillment. As we blaze new trails and change the trajectory of future generations, we can oppose this frequency of past trauma and project a frequency of a triumphant future. Can I tell you a true story about my grandfather really quick? So my grandfather, there he goes, look at him. My grandfather, Jesse Williams, was born in 1917 in Greenville, North Carolina. He grew up working alongside his father in the tobacco fields. My great-grandfather was a sharecropper. My grandfather was a sharecropper. At the age of 13, he was making the same wages as the adults because he was just as productive as the adults. He wasn't supposed to be getting that adult wage, but he was putting in the work and he was earning the income. Unfortunately, at that time, coming straight out of slavery, sharecropping was the closest thing to slavery, right? And so he was only making 75 cents a day, not an hour a day. This is in the 1930s. And so at the age of 18, my grandpa was like, I'm done with this. There's no way I'm living an adult life of less than $1 a day, doing back-breaking manual labor in the hot sun. And so what he did was he went to the military. He put his life on the line just to make more money, right? But then when he got back home, he went up north and he landed in Mansfield, Ohio, a small town in Ohio. And it was there he worked with the GM automotive company. He worked in manufacturing. And he was able to earn a much better wage and provide a much better quality of life for himself, his wife, and his future children. Now, patterns of thought, speech, and action from others and ourselves have created circumstances and narratives around our community. By altering our patterns of thought, then speech, we will then begin to act in accordance with what we think and what we say. So in regards to speech, let's talk about the power of words. One of my favorite books of all time is The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Some of you may have read that book. Any hands? Okay, so you guys know where I'm going. The first agreement is what? No, that ain't it. The first agreement, with all due respect, no, the first agreement is to be impeccable with your word, right? And so the author says, the word is like a double-edged sword. One edge is the misuse of the word, which destabilizes and degrades. The other edge is the impeccability of the word, which provides beauty, love, and abundance to the user. Now, if you accept a term, or if you accept an opinion, and then you accept and use a descriptive term for your community, it then becomes an agreement, and you put power in that opinion. These opinions and terms, repeated over time, low-key become spells. The only thing that can break a spell is to make a new agreement based on truth. Can I tell you a true story about my father real quick? So my father, there he goes, Edward Williams, was born in that small town of Mansfield, Ohio. Growing up, he was a great student, a great athlete. He went to college at Miami University in Ohio. It was there that he met my beautiful mother, Brenda, and they got married. And before they got married, he walked on and earned a football scholarship. So my dad was like that, you know what I'm saying? You could laugh at that. I heard those laughs. So he graduated college and he got a job in accounting. And soon after he got his job, he got an opportunity to get a promotion and move out west to Portland. Now, him and my mother are from Ohio, no family out west, but they took that leap of faith and they moved to Oregon, from Ohio to Oregon. And then as my father got to Oregon, he continued to dream. And he thought about the dream that he had since he was 12 years old, and that was to become a lawyer. And so he pursued that. Now at this time, father of four at this time, working full time. And so he was working a full-time job, going to law school at night. As hard as that was, he made it happen, and he graduated from Lewis and Clark College in 1991. Now, after 12 years of working in the profession of law, there's a little bit of burnout that happens. And then you start to think, what else can I do with my life? And essentially, my father, he wanted his life back, he wanted his time back, and he wanted to do meaningful work. Working as a lawyer and working for corporate pursuits is pretty taxing. And so he decided to actually pivot and take the ultimate leap of faith, and that was to become a pastor. He became the administrative pastor at Mount Olivet Baptist Church in Portland, Oregon. He left corporate pursuits for a life of community service. He's been at it for over 20 years, 20 plus years. He's interacted with and really blessed thousands of people, and he's just lived a better life because of the choice that he made to take a step out on faith. Now remember, the word is like a double-edged sword. One edge is the misuse of the word. The other edge is the impeccability of the word. If we internalize deficit language, if we believe in lack, if we believe we can't, if we believe that the past is the only roadmap to our future, then your mind and body will do all it can to fulfill that destiny. Conversely, if we believe in surplus, if we believe in abundance, if we believe that we can, if we consistently think and feel greater than our present circumstances, then your mind, body, and spirit, along with the universe, will conspire together to bring your vision into existence. Can I tell you a true story about myself real quick? So, thank you for that. It was rhetorical. I was going to tell it anyway. So I graduated from college in 2007, Texas Southern University, historically black college in Houston, Texas. I came home in 2008 and went straight into corporate sales. I sold insurance for 10 years. It was lucrative, but it was soul crushing, just call center style sales, strapped to a desk, call after call, transaction after transaction, mind numbing, okay? And the commute was terrible. Who in here has had just the worst commute? You might still be having it, so I don't want to speak on. I don't want to be traumatizing people. But essentially, I got tired of it. And 10 years of being in that profession, I quit. May 1st, 2018 was my last day of work. I went into work not knowing that it was going to be my last day, but I walked in and I quit. And I quit with no plan, but I had a promise. I made a promise to myself and my wife at the time that any work that I do moving forward was going to be something that I can be proud of. Something that if I take my kids to work and I get awarded for something, I'll be proud of it. I want to work with my community, on behalf of my community, for my community, all those things. And I want to make direct impact with people. And so I did what anybody would do in 2018 and you don't have a job. I drove Uber and Lyft. It was rough. But that was like, all right, I can make some money doing this while I'm trying to figure, because I did not know what I was going to do. But then in 2019, I started my company, YPD Equity Consulting, and started doing racial equity trainings and conflict management coaching. I still do that to this day. In 2021, I got an opportunity to get a full-time job with the Black United Fund. Oh, I was supposed to go there a long time ago. I got a full-time job with the Black United Fund. I started out as a coordinator, and I am now the director of economic justice and development. I run a business accelerator for emerging entrepreneurs, and we put on workshops and do all types of community engagement events. All right, so let me tie all this together. I know I'm talking about community, I'm talking about individual stories. Let me tie it all together, right? So we live in a complex world. We live in the tension of the effects of the past and the prospects of the future, right? And those terms that I mentioned earlier, they do speak accurately to the plight of communities of color and what we've went through and still experience as it pertains to systematic discrimination and prejudice. However, these narratives do not give an accurate representation of our worth or what we're capable of. What the system has done to you does not define you, right? And I tell the personal stories because I'm giving an example of this is how we break the spell. This is how we change the narrative by telling the rest of the story. There's more to our story than just our shortcomings, right? We make new agreements based on truth. So I want to encourage those that are chasing dreams and achieving goals to focus on the achievements of your community, whether it's family, acquaintances, or people that have similar lived experiences. You don't have to go far to find inspiration about your community, right? Create a narrative around your community that fortifies your subconscious, shatters that imposter syndrome, and drives you to do exactly what you want to do. Because truth be told, we come from a loving, resilient, brilliant, amazing group of people. The essence and root of our communities is unconditioned and unlimited in their creative capacity. They have done the unthinkable, which gives us the bandwidth to think beautifully, attempt fearlessly, and accomplish masterfully. So let us think, speak, and act in abundance in service of dictating the frequency of our future. And as I leave, I have to ask, are you driving the narrative, or is the narrative driving you? Food for thought. You do the dishes. Blessings.